All right. I was going to say ladies and gentlemen, but let's be real. I mean, I recently changed my my podcast intro to be like women and feminine leaders. So we're just going to say welcome ladies to the show. And I have a really incredible special guest for you today, my client Megan. Welcome to the show, Megan.
Thank you.
So Megan is my client in the Words Are Wands Mastermind. And I have some notes. I have some notes on her. I love it's like every time I have a podcast, I'm like, I have a dossier on you that we're going to cover today. All good things. Um, Megan's been doing some really incredible work, which will tell a funny story about her thoughts about it and then her brain, but we'll get to that in a little bit. But before we dive into all of the work you've been doing inside of the mastermind, do you want to tell us who you are, where you're from, and a little bit about what you do?
Sure. So I'm Megan. My last name on the internet is Kruger, Megan K. Recently I got married, so at some point there may be some adjustments to that because with the Social Security Administration, I'm now Heinisch. So,
Mm.
the joys of changing your name. I live in Woodbury, Minnesota, which is a suburb of St. Paul. I used to live on the other side of the river, on the Minneapolis side. Yes, I know. Now I'm over here. An East Sider. And I help women who want to have a better relationship with their bodies get off the diet roller coaster. So we look at food, we look at exercise, we look at how they see themselves and how they feel about the whole thing. We pull in the energetics, we talk about the soul when they're willing. I'm very woo and I'm quite open about it. Not all of my clients are, which is why it's very helpful that I also have extensive training and credentials in the science so that I can merge those two for people.
Yes. It's funny. That's actually, man, I kind of want to ask about the river in Minnesota, but I guess just to keep this on topic, we'll go here to like, I was thinking about the work that we've done together. And I do think it is like the people, the women I tend to call in, they're very good with strategy, the science, the rational mind, the logic, but there is also I don't think necessarily everyone is. I do think I work with a lot of people who've had a spiritual awakening, or it's like anyone who's come into their purpose, they might not even call it spiritual, but I'm just like, if you're living with purpose, that is a deeply, right? Where else do you think purpose comes from, right? But I do think also it could just be like women who have like high creativity, because let's be real, creativity comes from the same place, right? Um, and one of the things that I noticed so one of the things we do in the Words Are One's Mastermind is every single month we have a messaging audit. So every masterminder is able to submit, you can submit a sales page, you can submit an email, you can submit like whatever we've had people submit, like this is the podcast transcript where I pitch my program. Can you look at this? And Megan got creative. I loved actually what you did, but I think it was the last month you just submitted your Instagram and you were like, can you look at my Instagram? And I was so blown away by you because I'd obviously coached you. I knew you helped women and like we even worked on your messaging and the different angles and like, even like the little words of things that you could say that like really connect with your best clients. But when I went onto Megan's Instagram, I like came on the next week and I was like, we got to talk. Like you obviously, it was so clear from your Instagram that you had extensive training in nutrition and like actually how all of the food stuff works. Um, and it was really good. I really like the messaging audits because for me, when I start to touch your business, then I can come back in and I'm just like, hey, how can we pull this in? But I love too that like you have that spiritual lens of like you love the woo. Actually, I think this is I think this is like Megan can touch the woo and she can also talk to you about like I don't even there were like so many like nuanced things that as I was like I'm like I don't even know what you're talking about as I was like auditing your Instagram, but I was like it was so clear to me you were like an expert, right? But like I think the example for me is like when you submitted your Instagram, we went through, I was like, okay, this is what we can do with the highlights. It's much more like business consulting, right? Like the messaging audit. So I'm just like, okay, so like there's this and this and this, and like going through all piece by piece, all of the different things we could do. And then last week, the coaching that Megan came on for, I'm like, okay, and this is from a psychic development perspective, how you open your intuitive channel and receive more messages from the soul of your business.
Yeah. Amazing. Everything I could want and some. So good.
And I was thinking about it, like, because I think it was that same call. I was thinking, I'm like, that's a piece of content because literally in that same call, I think it was like Beanie had come on and I was like, okay, so like this is when you're doing like cold outreach for speaking. This is how you target it better. This is how you create templates. This is how you create lists. This is how you search, right? So it's like my logical brain. And then like 10 minutes later, I'm just like, okay, and now we're going to drop in
Yes. We're going to
opening your
our
intuitive channel.
body. You're going to take your business on a date. These are the romantic questions you're asking your business, kind of thing. And it was like, oh, that feels nice. Okay, I'm going on a date with my business. I'm going to get to
Yeah.
know my business again. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Hmm.
I do think that is probably one of the things that like sets this room apart is like the rigorous attention to the strategy and the best practices and the messaging and all of those things. And also it's like a room of women that like we can all connect on like how do we allow more of the feminine energetics, the intuition, the creativity, like the sort of creative urges to come in. And I just feel like it makes so much sense that you're drawn to the room because I see you can flex that in on the health side. So I just wanted to acknowledge you for that. I was trying to think of like all the different things that I wanted to cover and drop in with you today on. And maybe start here actually, because one of the things I was like, I don't even know your journey of coming into the mastermind. You literally just like my team was just like, this woman Megan, like she keeps dropping in. I'm like, who's Megan?
Okay. Well, so this is funny. I just didn't know who you were. I heard you on Lindsay Dosloff's podcast
Mm,
that, and I don't remember exactly when that was, if it was around winter of last year or 2 years ago, rather. I heard you on her podcast and I thought, who is this Catherine Morrison? Why do I know that name? And then I think I was in coaching archives for Stacy's mastermind because I was in her mastermind for a round and I discovered you know, because you can go back and you can see people past coaches coaching. And I thought, oh, I like this gal. What does she like? What does she do? Oh, she helps people with marketing. Oh, well, yeah, I'm sure I need help with that. And then I found your podcast and I played the intro for my husband. And I was like, I don't really know, but do you think she's making love to us? I think she is. It was like before when you were like when you had just rebranded the Ascension Through Entrepreneurship. I was like, what is fucking happening right now, Andrew? Listen to this. And I'm like, and then I played him a couple of other intros for other podcasts that I like. And I was like, this is totally different. Totally different. This is like a full body goosebump event, even before we've gotten into the material of the podcast. And so then I knew you had this pleasure and precision mastermind, which I wasn't ready for financially, nor like for the investment. And then there was the Brand Alchemy Accelerator, but it wasn't open. Okay, well, Catherine, I hope I'm not spoiling this for your audience, but I figured out that if you take one of your workshops, there's a back access way to get in. Ha! Yeah, boom. So I
well, I
got
love it because now we are open evergreen, so people can join anytime. But I know it was so last year. What Megan's talking about is last year. So we've had this phase with the accelerator. With the first year, it literally was only open 4 times a year. But then last year, we went into ads and funnels, and so there were backdoor velvet ropes ways to get in. And I know y'all found it. There were even people that like when we closed after the Q4 launch, they were finding some of the funnel, like they were sneaking in, like we were supposed to be done. But it's like when y'all know, you're like, I need to be in the accelerator. So, okay, so Megan found the backdoor velvet rope if anyone's listening and you want to join, you can literally just join now. You don't need to like go sneaking around. But so Megan had to.
I
She snuck
did.
her way in.
And so I don't know if I was already in the Brand Alchemy Accelerator when you had launched Words or Wands, but there was a reason that I didn't go into the first round. And I can't remember if it was just cash on hand or if it was that I was already in another mastermind, but neither here nor there. I knew I was like, okay, I need to do Words or Wands. Well, then the next round was getting ready to launch. And I was in a situation where I was like, okay, no, it just does not make sense to spend this money right now. Well, then a couple of things really quickly changed. $115,000 came into my bank account and my whole life changed. So I moved to the other side of town. I had sold my house, etc. And I was like, okay, yes, absolutely, I can do this now. And I messaged your delightful Shay and said, okay, when does it open again? And she was like, well, not until spring of next year, but conveniently, we do have some spots open, even though it has closed. And I was like, what?
You're just a backdoor access kind of gal.
I guess so. So I said to her, okay, I can make the payment in full by this date. When's the latest that you can get me in? And she was like, well, ideally you need a few days to review the materials before we have our VIP day to get this thing going. I said, okay, as soon as I can, I'll pay. So she sent me the link. I had it on hand. Like funds were distributed into my account a few days earlier than was expected. Oh, no, you know what actually ended up happening? No, my mistake. Andrew, my now husband, who was then my fiance, said, wait, you need time to absorb this material. Just give me the link, I'm going to pay. And then you'll pay me back once, once your money is in. So he got me in. So then I did have more time where I was actually able to sit with the material, process it, etc. So yeah,
Okay.
that's the journey of how I found you and how I got in.
That's the story of how maybe there should be a podcast on how Megan manifests everything. You're like, I wanted the accelerator. It wasn't open. I found my way in. I wanted to be in Words or Wands. It had closed. I found my way in. I needed the money. It wasn't there. It came to me. So
Yeah, that's, honestly, what is I mean, I think not to quote scripture, but isn't it something to the effect of where there is vision, there will be provision or something?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, if you have the vision and you know that it is in your heart.
Yes. Well, and I think it's a little bit of like knock and you shall receive. Is that another? Listen, I'm not a Bible scripture person, but I think that's like another thing. Because to your point, it's like we had closed, but you just took the time to email the team. This was literally the same thing in Q4 with the accelerator. I hadn't thought about opening payment plans, but then it was like a handful of people. They were just like, please, like we really like the structure of it's about to change. Like, please, please, please. Like they're all knocking. And so I was like, you know what? Like if they took the time to reach out, like it shows to me, right? Like, and that to me, it's like the client who's motivated enough to do something like that is likely someone I want in my programs. And so I think it's like, I don't know, maybe this is like not where I expected it to go, but I'm just like, that's something that you can probably, for the people listening, pick up from Megan is like, she's willing to, I mean, with the accelerator, I guess you found the back door just through like lurking around my website or something. But with this, it was like, I'm gonna knock. I'm gonna like, I really want in there. Like, I'm really gonna just take the time. And the worst case is the answer is no, and I'll be fine.
Right, right. Yeah, with
But
the accelerator, I thought, okay, if it's not open, that's fine. There's still these other resources on her site. And so there's great value in these workshops. I might as well. And then it was like, oh, magic.
oh my gosh, it's so good. So I didn't know all of that. So thank you for, it's always so fun to me because it's like, I don't even know, like we can see data on our ends and I am a little psychic, so I can read things energetically, but like, it's just so fun to hear the different stories of like how people find their way in. So you came into the mastermind. We had an incredible kickoff. We do like a virtual kickoff day where we meet for like a full day. We drop in, we cover all the things, right? Like your unique process and step by step for like your logical buyers. We cover the messaging angles, like all of the things. And from there, I can't remember, I think it was maybe right around Black Friday. And I was like doing my first Black Friday sale. And I think it came up that I've been in a mood where I think a lot of people in the digital space, and it's so interesting. A lot of my clients that just sell to like regular people, lawyers, civilians, whatever, like their businesses are doing better than ever. But there was a thing last year for people who sold to other digital entrepreneurs where there was a contraction, right? And while other people are spinning out and freaking out, I was like, I'm just gonna fuck around and find out. So I was like in a fuck around and find out mood. And after the virtual kickoff, I just was like encouraging everyone to just be like, we're going to use the most strategic lens that we can. We're going to get in the vibes and then we're going to play. Like, what is business but to play? And so I think one of the first posts that you put into our private group, like every time I read it, I feel the energy of it. And I think it really was the way that you set it up. So I think you were away with some girlfriends for a weekend and it was like, and it was, and I think it's like she drops you in as like a writer. She's like, it's early morning. Everyone is sleeping. But, like for me, I'm taking the time to review some of my numbers. So this is the vibe, right? She's in the early morning. And this is her post. I was reviewing some numbers. My email list is up. My Instagram engagement is up. My F around and find out Black Friday thing generated $3,000 in extra revenue. I passed $101,000 cash collected in business this calendar year, and there is a month left. And then you went on to like talk about it was like, okay. And like, what I also love is like, there's surplus, right? Like I'm getting my financial house together and like all of these things that are happening. And now you're using this room to grow to multiple six figures, which is very fun. But I want to start there because like you came into the room, you were already, I mean, I don't know, you would have been close to 100, whether or not you joined my room, like you would have been close or right. Um, and so just thinking about though, like there were certain shifts that you saw getting close to six figures where you were like, okay, this is the room that I want to be in to make that sort of next jump. And to see just within that short period of time, your Instagram engagement go up, your email list is up, like you're bringing stuff in Black Friday. So, and that wasn't even that long after the virtual kickoff event. So I'm curious from your perspective, what were the immediate things that you adjusted to? It could be energetically, it could be in your messaging that created that big shift in your business.
So there were a few things. So on the strategy side of things, there were some really basic things, but that were very eye-opening. And I don't know that I would have thought to do them or have cleaned them up without the workbook and the prep time before our virtual kickoff. And that was cleaning up some of the pathways that clients find me. Then
Yeah.
another thing strategically that we talked about was simply telling people what we want them to do. Like, hey, this is how you join my newsletter. This is what I'm talking about next week. And right, I know it sounds funny and people probably will chuckle because it's so obvious. And yet, how often are we
Yeah.
actually saying to our audiences, hey, this is what I'm going to be talking about in the next little while.
Yeah.
This is
And this is why you want to come. And these are
yeah,
right. Like, and this is
yeah,
like all of the, yeah. So it's like just messaging best practices and really, I think looking through, and I think that's the benefit of joining something like a messaging mastermind because it's like our communication, it's our connection point with our clients, right? So I think for you to be able to like all of a sudden you join, you're like, okay, I'm going to start looking at my words with a
mhm,
lot more consciousness.
definitely. Yes. And so, and then the other thing, one of the big shifts that happened at the end of November around Black Friday, we're going to be joined by my little cat here in a moment.
I love it.
She has woken up from her nap and she's here for us. Was okay. So you had said, yeah, why don't you just play and find out? And I thought I had come kind of from this background of I have my one offer, 1.5 if we're being fair. We don't play, we don't create other offers because that's
Yeah.
extra work.
Yeah.
And I think for me to get out of any feeling of stagnation or boredom, I
Yeah.
have to have some other things come through. So
Yeah.
being able to model your framework or follow your framework of creating some small mini, like possibly one time only ever offers for Black Friday was really fun.
Yes.
And I wasn't super attached to what would happen or not happen. And
Manifestation best practice. Just
right.
gonna keep yeah.
And it ended up being, I think, total over three something
Yeah.
$1,000. Okay, fun, great. And one of those people became an ongoing client after that full day event that we had together. So beautiful. I mean, fantastic. So
Yes.
the decision to play as well, and to try to
Yes.
just say to myself, okay, well, what would be fun for me to create? And it's going to be great to execute for the client.
Yes.
But like let go of it needing to be perfect. That was also another time I was thinking about, because I know we're going to talk about selling from email. Like there I was making a very basic landing page with people clicking on the page, and then there being some options to like, oh, I want to buy this. And then, oh,
Yes.
wow, I bought it. And now I'm getting it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I listen, we'll get into that in a little. It's a beautiful thing when you start just like the ding ding dings of like the payment notifications like coming in, and like you don't have to have as much time on your calendar for the sales calls, and you don't even have to like produce as much content when your messaging gets really strong. But I do think you're like it's always the strategy and the energetics. And so I think for you it was like the energetics of like letting it feel light, letting it feel playful, like let's just see what happens. And there's also like a strategic, I don't hear this talked about a lot, but like one of the reasons why in Words or Ones we have the signature offer. I do think that is important up to your first 6 figures or so to like really double down on like this is my signature thing. But one of the things we play with is having these like creativity sandbox offers for like just allowing you like to express, but also from a strategic lens. So I think there's the energetic of like allowing creative expression, allowing play, allowing like the fuck around and find out energy. But it's like very well documented that it's much easier. I think it's like current clients are 51% more likely to buy from you
Mhm.
than new clients, right?
Mhm.
So it's like when you just have like a single thing, and if you don't have like an ascension model where that person can go into another thing, or there's like right like where if it doesn't make sense for them to stay in that one single offer, then
Mhm.
they bounce. And then it's like, wait, but what? Like, but there's so many, like, there's all of these other things. And so I think to your point of like having this creativity sandbox offer that gave someone a taste. And when someone has a taste of your work, they're like, I want the whole meal. Right. And so I think from like we could look at it like, oh, okay, like $3,000 from like $100,000. Someone could be like, well, is that worth it? But I bet you if you track, right, like what what that person then on the back end is doing, ascending into like working with you, is it one-on-one or
Yes, so she's in my group hybrid program.
yeah,
And the other person who bought several half days with me.
yeah,
And she was already a current client, but I'd never offered that before. And
right.
she was like, "Oh my gosh, I need you. I need your help. Like the energetics are all off in my place, and I know that it's not supporting me in my goals," which is, not exactly what I do, but it was amazing
Mm-hmm.
to be able to, exactly to your point, give a current client another avenue to work with me.
Right. Yeah. Versus like when you're like so tight. And I do think there are some people that is just like that's what feels good to them. And it really is like, what kind of business feels good to you? So I love you brought in more play. It brought in more money.
Mhm.
Like, and it's not just the 3K because you're seeing those people then continue to spend with you, which I do think it is just like, I don't know if I like pretty much every one of my clients is like their whole thing is like their clients love to work with them. Like the few clients they have really say great things about them. They're just like, I just want more of them. That's such a beautiful place to be working on your messaging because it means your delivery is strong, right?
Yes.
Because it's like, I can't, like, I don't have programs to help you like with your delivery, but I'm just like, but if your delivery is good, if the people that are currently working with you are happy, please come
Yeah.
like work on your messaging because then
Yes.
we can get more of those people that will be like so much happier. So I love that that's been your experience, which actually brings me to the next thing I wanted to cover, which was like when I did your Instagram audit, one of the things that was like, I think probably the biggest thing that I covered with you was like me looking at it. I'm like, you know what, Megan? I know you made 100,000. It's incredible. $100,000 is nothing to sneeze at, but
Mhm.
you're going for much bigger. And I know you want to go for much bigger. So when I was looking at your Instagram, I'm like, this is optimized and calibrated to connect with like the group of people that's already very close to you.
Mhm.
And there's this thing when you want to go bigger where you have to recalibrate things to actually be like a total stranger could come in and like see your work. And so I'm just like, I'm curious for you, what was the impact of having that? Like, did you already know that that was a thing that was happening for you? Because I think it's like sometimes it's like the strategy of like, this is how we adjust the highlights, and this is like the 3-pin posts and whatever on your Instagram. But it's I think it was like an energetic thing too, of like energetically feeling, allowing yourself to open to wider groups of people, seeing you, higher levels of visibility and coming in. So I'm just curious, like what your experience with that was.
So being able to talk through that brought awareness to what I was feeling for sure. Um, and I would say that's still a work in progress for me because I think it is very comfortable for me to market and sell to my pond, my
Mhm.
existing pond. And there's that uncertainty of stepping into bigger light, just the discomfort of being
Yes.
seen, really.
Yeah.
And the shift in the way that I message, right? So it's kind of like I would imagine it would be a bit like if you were a dancer and you were perhaps really well versed in ballet, but you decided you wanted to learn to tap dance. Like, okay, there's some
Yes.
over, and obviously rhythmic principles still apply, listening to the music. However, it's a series of whole new steps, right? And
Yes.
that's what it feels like right now in terms of reaching more people is like even just things like today, I made an Instagram reel, and you and I had talked about make sure that you have something that identifies what the reel is about on the cover page of the reel so that people
Yeah.
can see, oh, this is for me or not me. Right. I
Yeah.
mean, just some simple things like that. Whereas if I'm just messaging to people I know, well, they're gonna watch it because they watch
Right.
all of them.
Yes.
We're
Yeah.
already in, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is, I think it's like, and I see a lot of people get stuck at the 6-figure level. I think because of this, like, and I love that you said like the pond, because I think the 6-figure level, you start to feel like, you're known within a certain network. There's like a lot of know, like, and trust. The warmth of your audience is very warm. And that warm, let's be real, warm is very cozy. It's
Right.
very cozy.
Right. For
And
sure.
so you have to make the decision to grow, like to grow beyond that 6 figures. It's like, oh, okay, like in order to grow beyond 6 figures, I want to actually, like, I don't want to be the big fish in a small pond.
Mm.
I actually have to face the discomfort of me, like disrupting yourself, basically, right? Like, because I'm sure you could stay at just like a nice 6-figure business. Like, you could probably keep that pretty consistent, like, just have some like word of mouth referrals. But it's like you're intentionally disrupting yourself,
Mhm.
taking yourself out of the warm, cozy pond and
Yes.
popping yourself into bigger waters that sounds like they feel a little bit colder.
For sure. Yeah. Well, and it's really, I think it continues to come down to getting out of my own way and
Mhm.
recognizing, okay, well, it's not, I'm making it about me if I'm choosing to stay comfortable.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think it is like rooting what actually one of the things we just covered on the last call. I think it was like, I don't know if it's because I did the Alexander Hamilton podcast recently or what, but like a lot of people have been coming like my why, my deeper why. I really want to ground into what that thing is. And I think for you, it's like you feel so connected to your mission of like really wanting to help, like so the impact you can have, the expertise you have, like the passion you have for women and really helping women. That's gonna it has to. Like when you ground into that, it's like, yes, we're jumping into the lake, right? We're leaving the pond and we're jumping into the lake because in the lake, there's larger groups of the people that I'm meant to serve. And I don't care if I'm a little bit cold because like it's worth it in order to connect with those like larger groups of people. And I'm willing to do that. And I just think it's like, I don't even think people, if you don't consciously put yourself in like containers to bring that level of awareness, it's like you wouldn't even know. You're just like, well, the pond is cozy.
Right. Right.
Right. And so I think like I've just seen this big shift for you of going from I'm going beyond selling to like this small pond of people that like we love the small pond of people. We're going to keep loving the pond.
Mhm.
Right. And like a lot of the people from the pond are like, we're coming
Yes. 100%. Mm-hmm.
so good. All right. So that I think is like going to be so helpful for people who are like getting close to that 6-figure level and like wanting to grow more. We covered like, I don't know, the sort of messaging shifts, things like that, which leads us to your horrible failed launch.
Ha. So funny. It's
I
so funny, right?
so
Okay. So what would you
I want to wait, I want to set the stage because like the way that Megan comes on for like coaching about this thing this day, I'm like, oh, it's like there's this bad thing happened. And as she's literally describing everything that happened, I like want to cry with joy for her. And I'm like, you are so confused. So I just want to set the stage. But obviously, when we live in our own minds, like we can't see it. But can you unpack for us what happened?
Okay, so I was still in this energy of fuck around and find out. And I realized, okay, so 2 years in a row around the 6-figure mark. Okay, similar amounts of revenue, similar numbers of people served. All right, if I truly want to help more people, I need another route to help people that does not rely upon one-to-one interaction. Okay, great. Perfect. So it's time to dabble with a bit of a program or something like that. And I thought, all right, great. I'm going to live launch this. I'm going to record it as I go, etc. So I began marketing. Well, first the page was created, the price point was decided, and I knew it was not going to be like my forever price, but it was, all right, this is what I'm comfortable with right now.
Yeah.
Cool. Begin selling emails, adjusting them as I'm going. The first few emails, so we're about to do this copy review, right? Next week. So this is something for those of you who don't know, part of Catherine's program includes messaging review. So you're going to get one of the emails, actually one of the better ones, because I went back and I looked and I was like, what the fuck did I even say? I was like, yeah, this is who it's for, kind of this is what it's about, but no details on like what was included or like what they could expect the transformation to be. Just like go to the page and buy. And what's amazing is a lot of people went to the page. Not a lot of people bought right away, but a lot of people went to the page. So then I thought, well, shit, maybe I better tell them what's actually going to be included. So I listed like, I know this is hilarious. I listed some like details about, okay, these are the deliverables you're going to get. These are some of the topics we're going to cover, etc. I ended up selling 6 spots, which I believe was around $3,500, all through email and the page, and all through revising as I went. Now,
Which I want to pause. So was it your first time listing the price on the page?
yes,
Okay.
yes,
So I just
on,
want to point out these are like, and so I think your goal was 10 and you ended at 6. So like the whole thing is like,
mhm,
oh my gosh, like whatever. And I'm like, what?
mhm,
For the first time ever in your
mhm,
entire business, you
yeah.
listed something just price up on the page. No one had to talk to you. You had 0 sales calls,
Mhm.
which like
Yeah.
how long were your sales calls that you were running
Yeah.
prior?
So my sales calls still are 45 to 60 minutes.
Okay, right? So it's like 6
Mhm.
hours of her life, right? Like, so just thinking about, and I'm in this, I'm like, wait, what? Like the compound effect of what the skill that you have now accrued within your messaging, like to be able to communicate at that level, to have people not even need to talk to you because you have learned how to communicate through your words so effectively that they just buy. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I just needed to point that out because you're just like, I made this page, but I'm like, but these are our first things. Like, it's incredible. So I'm sorry. I think I knocked your flow. I hope you know where
No,
you're.
that's okay. So the other thing that was different about this as well was that further into the sequence of emails, I actually just straight up listed the price in the email as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So it was one of those things where there were a few bolder steps for me. Because prior to that, booking sales calls for my group hybrid or for one-to-one, I was not saying, and by the way, one-to-one will be $4,000 for 6 months or whatever, right? It wasn't those things at all. It was like book a conversation and let's figure out if it's a good fit. So
Right.
this was a big shift. Mhm.
Yes. I love it. Yeah. And I think actually one of the things that we were covering on this last week's mastermind call is like, as you start to get busier and more fully booked with clients, it's like it is certain things like you actually people don't understand, but it's like once you get to a certain level, it's like because of your demand, you actually have to start putting in client filters. And one of those client filters is like, I'm going to just tell you the price ahead of time.
Mhm.
And I'm going to allow you to like walk yourself into it.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, I'm going to like have a very like thought through sequence of emails through my messaging that will like answer any of the questions. But it's like all of those types of things that I feel like earlier on business owners, like and I don't even have opinions about like, should you list your price ahead of time or not? I think it's more the energetics of why you would do it or not. But there is like a certain flex to just knowing that that's in your back pocket
Mhm.
as a business owner, because it's like everything that you've learned in terms of messaging like doesn't just go away for your next creativity sandbox offer, right? Like you take everything that you learned and you just like move it towards that, and you get to have like skills don't like you have them for the rest of your career. And so this was like the day when she came on for coaching about like I was 4 off from where I wanted to go. I'm like, what? Like you just cut out multiple steps
Mhm.
from everything you've done prior, and like 6 people. And actually, like, I have you like started the program? Do you know like are they best fit great clients?
So far, actually, it's going really well. It's funny too, because the other day I was looking at their portal where they'll have lifetime access. And I thought, holy shit, this is really good. And we were on a live call. They have 6 live calls with me over the 6 weeks, and I taught, and then I took questions, and I had answered questions that had been submitted. And one of the gals just said to me, like, "You have such a good way about you, and you're just incredible on video, and I just love listening to you." She compared me to someone really well known, and said, like, I can't stand listening to her, even though she's obviously really intelligent. And I was like, I love her and thank you. Just let's move on. But it was one of those things where I thought, okay, yeah, I really do have a good quality product here.
Yeah.
And so now that I've sold 6, I'm several weeks in, I'm seeing what has been created and where this could go. I'm feeling really good about it.
Yeah.
Substantially better than I was feeling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh
Mhm.
my gosh, so good. And because I think that's the other thing is like when you get a little bit more fully booked, it's like, am I able to draw in best fit clients, right?
Mhm.
Like many best fit clients all at once, and like doing that very strategically through like knowing it's, I always say they come how you call them in. And I think so many people just don't think about who they're calling in. And so what you have done has created the ability to not just have that number of people all in a space. And I do think this is like so important when you go to small groups. It's like the vibe of the group really like your ability to curate a room becomes a thing that was like never a thing with one-on-one,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so I think for you to have like been able to like make that jump, price ahead of time, people buying straight through email, 6 incredible clients that you're just like
Mhm.
probably excited to see on your calendar. And
Yeah,
it's just the beginning.
it's really good. And I gave some of my existing clients access as well. So the nice thing is that I've had good attendance on the live calls. The questions have been great, and I knew that no matter what, there would be good energy.
Yes.
So
I
good.
love that so much. Oh my
Mm.
gosh. Okay. So I feel like I'm looking at my list. We have covered all the things I wanted to cover. Is there any, is there anything else that like you want to share with people? Oh, you know what? Here's actually something. I do want to go there, but I didn't realize at the beginning when you were talking about your journey into here that you had taken part in like you've been in other like high level masterminds. And I'm just curious, like all masterminds can be an incredible fit for a certain type of person. And I do think it's like from your experience, just like being around, how did you know that like Words or Wands was for you? And how would people listening know if this space would be a good fit for them?
Um, well, I think one of the main reasons for me is that, and I had said this in my application, my program, ultimately, I think people sign up to drop weight. My ulterior motive, although it's not really a secret, is ascension.
Yeah.
So when I listen to your podcast, you talk about ascension through entrepreneurship. I mean, I incarnated to help facilitate ascension for fellow humans. So my work always is with an eye to the soul's evolution on her individual journey. And I wanted to be in a room where we were going to talk about doing business in the 3D with 45D intentions. And so that's huge. And also, I don't know if you probably knew this. There's a book by Florence Scovel Shinn called The Game of Life, but one of her later books is Words or Wands, I believe.
Real.
Yeah. And so it talks about how, there's so much power in the word and how we have to be so intentional, not only in the way that we cast our intention through our spoken word, but what we're thinking as well. And so that's huge for me. I mean, I know that being able to be in a room where we can talk about, what do you feel when you read this? What's the energetic vibration? Not just from the words, but also the energy of how it's all being said. Like, I know that is going to, my development of those skills is going to be what is going to help me continue to draw in the people that want to grow on a soul level.
Yeah.
And of course, then see that manifested in the way their physical body changes.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love
That's
it. And yes, to your point, like when Words or Wands arrived to me, like I did not like my mind did not create it. It was like this actually, my poor team, like things just drop in. And sometimes it's like this is like I think this dropped in, Words or Wands dropped in, and it was like you need to leave your house. Like you need to leave. There's like a big download coming. And I was like, okay. So I like told my husband, I'm like, sweetie, like I've got to like leave you and the three kids. And I like went to a hotel with like very little notice and I just checked myself in. I forget if it was like for 2 or 3 days. And like the entire, I think it's like almost like 100 pages, like that you all receive it, like all came out of me in like in one go. And I don't have I don't have those all the time, but it's sort of so when I feel it in my body, like this wants to come through, like I have to honor the urge, like talking about creative urges, right? But it is like it does make so much sense. Like I was an English major, like I loved like words have the potential to transform. Like I mean, I don't know who said the pen is mightier than the sword, but like when we have a really big why and we care about what it is that we're doing, um, I've been thinking a lot about this, and I mentioned to the room that in the next round, I'm going to be like introducing a module that's like, I've been thinking about the difference between like commercial production, which is like sort of like copywriting and the lists and the deliverables and all of that. Like that needs to be there, right? Like for a person to buy weight loss, but it is also like it's artistic expression. There's something that just wants to transmit and channel through us. And that was actually, I think, on this past week's call, like Megan and I were connecting on like there's something wanting to emerge from her. So I'm like, all right, like how do we open the intuitive channel so that like it can start to reveal itself to you? And I do think it's like anyone, any copywriter will tell you, like, you need some things for the logical buyers and some things for the emotional buyers. But if they're just like a copywriter that's not connected to their heart, their emotional stuff is fucking flat as a board. And I feel like something that sets this room apart is like we can do the sort of commercial production type of writing. Like we can sit on the audits and be like, okay, this is where this could be a bullet point list, and this is where you could get clear, and here's where you're talking in weird coachy jargon that like civilians don't, right? Like we do all of that, but I think it is also to have that level of, I mean, listen, I don't write poetry, but I feel like there's certain times when there's words that want to come through us. Like, actually, like, we'll just talk about like my Alexander Hamilton podcast was not like my strategic business strategy brain that was like, this is a thing, right? It was just like this channeled from my mission, from me being so connected to the pulse of like what I'm here to do and like drawing in the right people. And like, I don't like in the accelerator, like my client Crystal was like, this changed my life. And then like other people are like responding there. Right. And I'm like, I'm so glad because I'm like crying on that podcast. Like I listened to it later. I'm like sniffling, like snot's just coming out of my nose. And I think it is to have that ability to stay so deeply connected to like your mission and your heart. And I think that was like on the call this week, it was like there's something from the like really tapping into the depths of your heart and your mission that like it's gonna I suspect, I wouldn't be surprised if something, if you have like an urge or like a thing that opens and a lot comes through you very quickly, is like, I don't know, I'm a little psychic so I can like feel it, but I can feel energetically there's like something big that's
Mhm.
wanting to drop into you.
Yeah. 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 So what else? The visual too, because you, I believe, have a tarot card of one of the wands, right?
I
Or
think so.
is it
I
maybe
remember.
it's not. I don't know. It doesn't matter, but
Yeah.
the visual was huge. There's just, I just knew. I think the thing I would say to people listening is you can trust your gut or your heart wherever you're led, right? And that feeling, because if you feel pulled and you keep coming back, then this is exactly where you need to be.
Right. I love
Mhm,
that.
mhm.
Oh, okay. And I think that's all of the questions. So now we can get to the question of, is there anything else that you would want to share with people who are listening? It could be around messaging. It could be around just like anything that's on your heart that's wanting to come through right now.
Um, no, not really.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I think maybe other than really along the theme that we were talking about before, just play,
Yeah.
have fun.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think it's like one of the things that we were talking about this week in the call was like that is within psychic development, the whole thing is like you raise your vibration and spirit lowers its like vibration, and then that's where you connect. That's where messages, that's where download, that's where like all of these things come through. And so when people talk about like how their best ideas come to them when they're in the shower, right? Or like it is like that's, we can scientifically engineer our ability to receive more messages from the soul of our business. We can like we can be more open. And I think to Megan's point around like the reason why I talk about play so often, it's an energetic, right? And so if my work is to like be more connected to what genuinely wants to come through me for the collective, if I'm in worry and anxiety and fear, I'm not going to be as open, right? And so when I tune myself to those higher channels, one, I just think I have more fun.
Mhm.
And two, it puts us in closer proximity to the next thing that sort of like wants to come in, which I think is, I guess, another theme is like we've been talking about sort of manifestation. We started with Megan has just been able to manifest all the things. And so I think that's like another good thing, like for you to sort of end on. It's like for you to cue into that. It's not surprising that that would be where you would go with us starting with like your magical trip into the mastermind, right? Is like you're able to manifest powerfully.
There was something else that you had said, I think, in the last couple of weeks that I wanted to come back to as well. And this was really powerful for me. And it was something to the effect of it's not about how do we get to 10,000 or 15 or $20,000 months. It's about what impact are we looking to have on our clients, on humanity, society, however we want to view it. And hearing that and being, in a room where that is one of the foundational principles is really, really helpful. Because the second that I saw that or heard you say that, and I can't remember which it was like, oh yeah. Right. Let's bring it back again to like the Hamilton podcast, the why of what we're doing and what we're looking to create that will leave a lasting impact. Because when you, of course, you want to hit a new income marker because it's fun, it's exciting, and you know that that means that you're helping more people. But if you keep coming back to what's the bigger thing that's coming through, I think that's been the game changer for me.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And I do think it's like, and for some people, and I do think it is a thing where it's just like people like, I don't think there's no judgment if people are able to connect very strongly to like a money goal. But for me, it tends to be much more powerful to just be like, much more money comes to me when I really tether to what is that money? Like, what does it mean? Right. And I think about, I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, Beanie just had her first $10,000 month and she took 10 days off and she was like taking her kids to the Magic Kingdom and and I think about that, I'm like, the more of that, like the more money that comes to me, it's representative. Oh, I'll like cry now. Got through a whole thing without crying, right? But I just think about like, like people just like living these incredible lives with their families and the impact that they're able to have. And like, I don't know, I just love it's like you've moved across the river and you're now calling in like groups of people. And like, I just love that like what more money represents is just the amplification of this in the world, just like a better world, like more money made this way just means that the world gets better. It's like generative, I guess, is like the word that's coming through to me. Oh, okay. I didn't fully break down. You got me a little teary-eyed, but I was able to compose myself. All right. So thank you so much for coming on. I know people are going to want to come and connect with you and learn all the things. Listen, if you want, like, I'm not even like looking for weight loss, but when I was like auditing her Instagram, I'm like, this shit is good. Like the tips that you were giving and like everything that you were doing. So if you want to experience some of that magic, where can people find you?
The easiest place is on Instagram at Megan K Solutions, the letter K.
Beautiful. Beautiful. All right. So go follow her, go learn all the things, get connected. And thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Bye.